Leslie.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to see everyone here. While I was preparing this presentation, I realized that I have never given a presentation to the Westborough Garden Club, and I have been a member for 25 years. So it's my pleasure and my honor to present to you, and I'm going to have a lot of fun. Trudy gave me the title, so I had to go with this, and the real secret is that you can't say no to Trudy. And so, but I would encourage you all to say yes to Trudy, because I've had a lot of fun doing this, and figuring out, how I was going to create a theme around this workshop. And when I go to garden clubs, presentations, I like to see pretty pictures of plants, especially now in March, because we all have like nature deficit disorder and we want to get out there. And so I said, the only picture I really have is of my garden. So because I'm here 25 years, a quarter of a century in this community, and I love this community. The Westborough Garden Club, though, was the second club I joined. I joined the Westborough Land Trust first. We still were living in Marlborough, and I thought, oh, cool, they have a land trust. I want to be part of that. I attended the plant sale. We had just moved in. We were maybe here a week, and Sue Abladian talked about joining the garden club, and she's like, well, you can be my guest at the next meeting. And I lived in Marlborough 13 years, wanted to join the garden club, and I was never invited. So this was a different community. I was like, wow, me. And the third thing is I met Chris Allen, who left Linda, because you can't say no to her either. And I got involved in the Historical Society, and I have been a member of those 3 clubs, organizations, for 25 years. So I just think it speaks of this community. Opportunities for you to get involved, try new things, like giving PowerPoint presentations to garden clubs, whatever. So can you all see? Because I'm always standing in the way, yes, and I tend to move around a lot. And I do presentations for my organization, but in the last 3 years, I've only been in person 4 times, so I'm a little rusty. Thank you, Rad, for the great poster. I've never had a poster. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. So I'm going to keep that. And so tonight my topic is gardening secrets, and so you're going to see photos of my garden, because that's what I had photos of, and you all want to see pretty pictures. So I brought the prettiest picture of my garden tonight. I don't know about you, but this was the year of sticks. Yeah. It's amazing. So we started to make a quick little pile. I took a pile away in the fall, and I still have sticks. Yeah. It's been amazing. So all of our trees are pruned, folks, and here we are. You can use them as brown matter in your compost. You can use them as firewood. I'm usually thinking of creating a wall in my garden or whatever. So here we are in March, and it's bleak out there, and there's not much blooming, but I do plant for early spring growth. And I have these small little bulb irises that came up a couple of weeks ago and went through that little snow dusting and are still there. So the secret is to plant something that's going to come up early, because we all want to see that, and it gets us excited about gardening, and it's kind of that whole spring. Happy spring, everyone. That spring rebirth, that regrowth, that regeneration, and gets us motivated to get outside and get into our gardens. So my first tip is to really surround yourself with other people who are into gardening. There are no secrets that I have. I learned it all from you. I can't tell you how wonderful my colleagues in the gardening world have been. Garden Club here is 90 years old. It's a wonderful garden club, and I'm looking in this room, and some of my best friends are here, because we have been through so much over the years, and helping the town beautify and educate, and it's a really wonderful organization, and I have benefited from all the talks. The other organization that I joined early on when I was in Marlborough was formerly the New England Wildflower Society, and now the Native Plant Trust. I sat on, I answered an ad in, what was the newspaper back then? Middlesex News or something? Marlborough Enterprise maybe, for volunteers. And I went there to volunteer for their plant sale. And I worked in the basement of a building, putting together boxes for the plant sale with a group of people. And I had the best time. I never saw the garden. I never went outside. I spent 5 hours in the basement, and I came back. I sat on their plant sale committee for 15 years. I sat on their education committee for also 15 years. Incredible, wonderful organization, and connected me to learning and gardening. So it was another great thing. And I became a master gardener. So right before COVID, I decided I was going to do something for myself, and I joined the class at Tower Hill, which is now the New England Botanical Garden of Tower Hill, in West Boylston. You take 8 weeks of a class all day long. There's homework every week. You have a midterm. You volunteer over the summer. There's 8 weeks in the class in the fall. You have a final. It's a pretty robust program, but really great people to get involved with, and lots of opportunity to garden and to volunteer in different places all over the east coast of Massachusetts. So I became a master gardener in 2018, and we still do 30 hours of volunteering every year to keep our accreditation or whatever. And I'm almost ready to jump up a level. I think it's 350 hours or something, 300? I'm almost there. So, yeah, so there's a couple other master gardeners in here. And the neatest thing is, I got written up in our newsletters called The Dirt. And I heard from Jan Town. And I don't know if you remember her. And she saw me in the dirt. And she saw me in the dirt. I love this. And she wrote me a little card and said, hey, you know, whatever. And I realized, like, I have Joe Pyeweed from Jan Town. I think that's the other wonderful secret about hanging out with gardeners, is they share their plants. And so I look around and I have Daisy White stuff, and I have, you know, different people's plants. I have I know. I have fragrant irises from Margie Pierce, and they're Bee Warburton irises. So we all have little pieces of each other's gardens in our garden, which I think really makes gardening fun. So the other thing I hope that you'll take away, I've been on my property for 25 years, and so I'm trying to connect my land. So the first thing I'd like to do is to thank the original stewards of my land, the indigenous people who lived and worked and fished and hunted in Westborough and took care of the land. And in our area here in Westborough, it was the Nipmuc, and they were kind of stewards of the land, used the land, cared for the land before the Europeans came. I'm a history nut, so you'll see that in my talks and stuff. In our area here, the land, when European settlers came, you have to imagine how big of a space this was. And it was like, yeah, we'll just give a couple hundred acres over there to this person, and a couple hundred acres to this person. So the Eaton land grant was the land grant that was given to John Eaton that encompassed most of Westborough. And then he sold that off. I don't know what John Eaton did to get that land grant from the colonial government, but he did. And one of the purchasers was John Brigham. And the Brighams, I believe, came over from Marlborough. We were still part of Marlborough at that time. And he sold 100 acres to his son-in-law, Oliver Ward, who ultimately sold it to the Grout family. And so my house is considered, it dates to 1729, and it's considered the Grout house, but I also consider it the McTaggart house. And the reason why is these two families both held the property for 100 years. And I think that's very unusual. And the only other neighbor that we have is the Nurse family. And you guys have been holding it for almost 300 years, right? Yeah, about that. So we're new neighbors down the block. So the the land was used for lots of different purposes. It was a colonial farm, but in the 1800s, the McTaggart family, I have found this poster here. It's dated 1880, even 10 years after purchasing the property, that they had to put it up for auction, or something happened within the family. I guess it never went fully to auction because they kept the property. But you can see that it had cows and all different kinds of farm implements. And the McTaggart family ultimately had orchards, and a lot of people here from Westborough remember, I'm seeing a lot of nods, picking apples in the orchards. And I heard Walter McTaggart, who lived in the house, would allow a lot of the kids to camp in the backyard and fish in the stream, because the house, when he owned it, still retains 75 acres. So the property behind my house, and you'll see it on the map, ultimately was divided up for a subdivision. But those two families cared for the land. And so we're starting our next 100 years, Walter. Okay, 25. Okay. So this is a really nice old map of Westborough. You can see Hockomock Pond, and this is where my land is, right here. So I want you to connect to your land so that you can understand what it was used for and what is the history of your property. Use online resources. There's a lot out there in terms of figuring out your property and what it was used for and how it's oriented and the neighbors and the history of the land. So you're digging deeper a little bit more into it. So Westborough has a wonderful GIS, I don't know what that is, Geographical Information System, I think it is. So you can look up your property, and you will see here, it's my property, 207, right on West Main Street, but I have 7 abutters because of the shape of my property. So that gives you an orientation of how your property is. I think I cut off your house, Polly, you're right here. But it just is another way of looking at your land. You can use Google Maps. So this is the town's GIS. You can see the orientation of the land. And this is Google Earth. So you can see, here's my house right here, and I'm the one with all the trees. So, yeah, I'm fine to answer your questions.
How many acres do you have?
I have 2.2 acres. Almost, little, what, 2.19 or something like that. So this is another way to get an orientation of your land and your property. And sometimes getting that bird's eye view realizes, wow, I can plant a lot more trees here in the middle. So it's all about planting trees, okay? But use the online resources. So there's not only the maps online, way to get into the town's GIS system, but Google Earth. Always remember your location. It's all about location, location, location in real estate, right? And so we all need to think about it because we all live in New England and it snows. So think about where you live in terms geographically. We live in a place where it gets cold and it's hard to plant tropical things. So even though I love some of these tropical things, you can't grow them, so you have to stick to your zone. I live on a main street. So in my front yard right now are chunks of the curb that the plow picked up, threw onto my front yard. So I do that every spring. Some years I sweep a lot more sand off the front yard. And this year we didn't have a lot of snow and they didn't spread a lot of that stuff. So it looks like a good year for spring lawn out front. And what's amazing is that even though you live on the main street, there's my mailbox, you can create a garden anywhere, okay? You just have to think of that location, think of what the impact of your environment is. And my front of the yard is salty, and it gets a lot of snow thrown on it, so I can't have a really pretty bush within 10 feet, 15 feet of the road. So it's thinking about your location and what the impact of that is on your property. And fine if you answer questions along the way. Okay, that's fine. Next. Okay, so as we start to listen to our garden, okay? And think about our property and think about where we are gardening. We are in Westborough, Zone 6. I think when I moved here, we were 5B, which says something to me. Our climate is changing. We still can't do those tropical plants though. But know what your zone is. Our last, and first and last frost date, okay? We only have a growing season of about 145 days. And it was amazing to me that the last frost date is May 8th. Now I remember years ago, waking up to several inches of snow in May. It happens here on top of all of our beautiful blooming spring bulbs and stuff. So just think about that. And that's why in New England, you don't plant your tomatoes to Memorial Day. That's the big secret. Because it's going to be cold, and the ground has to be at least 50 degrees for vegetables to do really well. Anything you put in is going to have that shock because it does get cold here. And I know we're going to have at least one more snowstorm, right? What are your microclimates in your property? Think about all the different places. Now, I have a big piece of property, and you might have a smaller size of land, but I bet next to your driveway, it's hotter than the rest of the soil around your property. So I have a salty front. I have a hilly shade. I have an open, dry kind of field. I have a wet pocket in the back. That's where, when the snow melts, it's always wet back there, and you walk on the dirt back there, and it's kind of spongy and wet. So that's not a really good place to put certain plants. So you have to know what your property is like and play to its strengths and its weaknesses and what's out there. I also have a bunch of woods. So I don't have a lot of sun in the backyard. So I'm going to be starting thinking, when I'm thinking about my garden, around what will do well in shade and what will do well under story kind of plantings. If I want to develop that area, and I keep, of course, developing and expanding my beds. I only get exposure really around the house, that full sun. I have one area where my vegetable garden is, and my front yard gets a lot of eastern sunlight in the front. My house, the front yard faces east, so I really only have a small portion that's open for the sun. So I have to kind of plan around that, thinking about where is the sun on your property. And really, before you plant anything, track that spot. Go out several times a day and measure. Is it getting light? Is it getting light? Is it getting light? People who put in vegetable gardens without 6 to 8 hours of sun are not going to get vegetables. They really need sun, unless you that pot on your deck that moves around. And then what's the use of your land also? So when we moved in, I had 2 sons. So I had soccer balls everywhere, and baseballs and lacrosse balls in all of my beds. And I wanted them to play in the yard. I want the dog to be in the yard. So I have to kind of think of, where is the use of my yard? We have a driveway, we have some pathways, I have a vegetable garden, but we put up like a badminton net. I have horseshoes. You know, how do you use your yard? How do you get from place to place? So I think one of those secrets and those tips is to really think about how you use your yard and your plantings. And don't put something that's very choice and very special next to a place where your kids are going to play. Because they're just going to tromp right through it. They really are. And the dog tromps right through it. So figuring out that. So review the use. This was a hillside, and when we moved in, this was all bush honeysuckle and that awful multiflora rose, that awful rose that breaks, the tips break in your hands and fester, and they're awful. So we cut them down. I used a weed wrench to get them out. It took about 10 years to really get rid of this stuff, and there's still a little poison ivy in there. Always is a little poison ivy. But slowly put things in, and made some mistakes and moved things out, in and out. So it takes a little while, and you might change your mind too. So fun in the garden. So that's that other tip, is to step back and observe and walk your property. Look at it from different angles. I have 7 neighbors who enjoy my property from different angles. Have you ever stood on your neighbor's porch and looked back at what they're looking at? Oh, I shouldn't have put that there. You know? So look at that perspective. That's a way to be a good neighbor. To walk your property, look at it, try to match your landscaping to your house style. If you have a very modern house, maybe a different kind of a modern garden will kind of work well, will play well with the angles and the spaces. My house was built in 1729, so I thought I'd plant all these colonial things. Well, that didn't work. But looking around, what would have been there back then? I have 3 shagbark hickory trees that produce nuts. That would have been appropriate in colonial times. So I've left those. They're messy though. You don't want shagbark hickories. But things that are appropriate to your house, the style, the size. I think that works well when you're creating a garden. Curb appeal. I always tell everybody, they say, oh, your house looks so nice. They only do the front, folks. The back looks a mess, but they can't see that. So we all live on streets, right, Diana? Who was it? Talking about streets. Oh, Chris. So how does it look when people are going by? I really have a dream someday to have those thousands of crocuses blooming across the front of the yard. And I started and I put in about 500 chipmunks. Got them all. So if anybody has a tip, other than to put them in separate cages and bury those on the ground to keep the chipmunks out, I might go with daffodils because they won't those. And planning for year-round interest. So look at big and small. I put in an elm tree when I first came in. It was one of the newer hybrids. I think it's a Liberty elm, but I didn't keep the tag. So having that structure, having that tree that's gone from our landscape, all the elm trees, looking for what can you plant to have that impact in your garden. These are my shagbark hickories, and they will drop probably 4 or 5 barrels worth of. It's actually the squirrels get all the nuts. You get the shells, and they're really heavy. So it's a nice thing, and you'll look to your full land, and remember to look from your windows. We spend a lot of time indoors in New England, and I, especially during COVID, really spent some time looking outside at my garden and planning, because we felt very isolated, but having that view out into my garden. So think about that as you start to plan your garden, is also interest from inside looking out. And I have a couple places. You might have a favorite place that you sit and read a book by a window, and what is your view? Creating interest beds that are like not putting the plantings close to the windows, pulling them out a little bit, so you're now looking from the window down into a pocket garden, private garden. So using those kinds of tips to change the way you use your garden and see your garden. And winter interest is another thing that we look outside a lot of times and just see snow, but can you create interest with your plantings so that it has some dynamics, so it has some texture, it has some color. Do your research. Oh my gosh. There's so much out there. Our library has great books, but you can order through the library system almost any book that's published and have it delivered right to our downtown library. So that's what we do in the wintertime, folks, as gardeners. We're looking at those pretty pictures, we're looking at books. Catalogs. Oh my gosh, I brought some tonight. Talk about free information that comes right to your door. All of those catalogs have a great description of the plant, the habitat, the size, the color. They're all free. And I save some from year to year because they're really just a great resource. I go online. I Google everything. I know all you guys have like a little app for your plants and everything. I can't do that. I just have never been able to get that true picture to identify well. But if you go online, Go Botany, Native Plant Trust, has an incredible plant identifier. So if you're trying to identify a plant, you can identify it by the leaf, the structure, the size, and they're right on. And I had a plant in my garden for years and years, and used Go Botany, and boom, it came right up. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. So spotted hawkweed, who knew? So use Go Botany. The other thing is our conservation district. I don't know if you know that we are in the Worcester County Conservation District. They have a plant sale twice a year. I believe it's this week. The order is due, so you can just go online, Worcester County Conservation District. You order online, and pictures of everything. There's vegetables, perennials, trees. I have bought a lot of trees for my property through there. The first time we went, Walter and I brought our pickup truck, and we were all set to go. We ordered all this stuff, and he handed me a paper bag because everything is this big. So we have 25 Christmas trees in the back of my property that were this big, and it takes about 20 years for them to grow. So beautiful plant, so price is right. It just is. And the neat thing is the fall sale now has some really interesting bulbs, early flowering bulbs, and they sell garlic. Oh my gosh, garlic is fantastic. So it's just a really nice way to support your local conservation district. You can get great plants and try something new. And if you don't want a bundle of 25 of something, share with your friends or pot them up for the plant sale, which I also have done. So the best advice someone gave me when I purchased my house is to go slow. Let the house speak to you. And I think you should do that with your garden. I think you should let the land speak to you and help you see its potential. We all want to go out and buy something, put it in, and have it look beautiful. And it might look beautiful for 2 weeks, and then all the flowers will come off. And, you have to kind of think of where you want to go. How many people here have done a pH of their soil? Oh, a couple. That's great. So our local extension system at UMass, you just put together some dirt, they tell you exactly how to do it, and you can get a soil test analysis of your soil, which is really probably the best thing you can do, because your soil may only be needing one thing. And for you to throw lots of nutrients and lots of, different things into your soil that you don't need it is wasteful, and it's probably damaging to your soil. So I have, in the 25 years I have been there, I have never put any pesticides into the ground, no fertilizers into the ground. I'm almost organic, right? I put a little lime in my vegetable garden. But that's it. I don't do anything in my lawn. It looks green enough. And it seems to be okay. I use almost everything that I have in my yard. I compost on the yard. We grind the leaves up. We leave the grass clippings now on the grass. So it's feeding itself. And it seems to be okay. So I think it really, unless you come into a garden and you know the soil's not good, or your plants are dying, which is another sign that things aren't good, I would recommend a soil test. Set your priorities, because we don't want to do everything, everywhere, all the time, and you can't. Especially as we get older. You can only garden so many hours of the day. If you're putting in a new garden, start with some bigger plants and put those in and fill around. If you can, find something interesting. Find a different cultivar. Find a specimen kind of thing, because it'll really carry the day. And also maybe be a theme for that area and that site. It could be just an incredibly beautiful hosta, and then you work off of that. So if you can, because you can get other stuff at garden club plant sales, get something choice and something different. And there's lots of really fun nurseries out there. So it's fun just to even tour around and find things. I practice island gardening. So if you've ever been to my property or you look at my house, I have these islands. And it helps me control how much I work in my garden. So I'll go out and I'll just do one island, okay? And I'll go in and I'll edge it, and I'll prune, and I'll weed, and maybe transplant a couple things. But at the end of the day, I have one nice place that looks really good. And so it helps me get through heavy gardening. It's one spot. I can kind of create a little vignette things going on. I can take things out that aren't working. And then the next day I go to another island and work that way. Otherwise, you're doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and nothing really gets done. At least that's what I've learned, is that it's sometimes best to focus yourself in one area. I say low maintenance plant because there are no such thing as no maintenance plants. Okay? You gotta, if you're a gardener, you're gonna have to work in your garden. Or you're gonna have to hire someone to work in your garden. So figure out what works for you. I think a lot of us are moving away from, I don't plant really any annuals in my yard because I don't water. I don't have time for them. I'm moving away even from perennials and going to shrubs because it just holds the landscape a little bit. And if you don't put a perennial in or don't put a flowering plant in, it still looks good, you know, and it'll go there. Key is the right plant in the right place. So this is the story of my Calmia latifolia, which is my favorite shrub. It's a mountain laurel. The white one is the native mountain laurel. They have so many beautiful. I have a Sarah, which is deep red, and a pink one, I think is candy cane or something. There's so many beautiful ones. I've moved this shrub 7 times. It's about 25 years old. I had it one place, it wasn't doing so well. I moved it somewhere, it wasn't doing so well. Moved it somewhere else, it almost died. This is a place that I didn't think it would do okay. It's right near my deck, but I was tired. I just said, no, I'm gonna put it in here. And it worked. It's got a tree, so it's kind of underneath a tree. It's kind of tucked in. I don't throw snow on it in this area. And it's thriving. So much so that I have to prune it back down. But it has beautiful, beautiful blossoms. And the neat thing is, this is the accident of gardening, is I planted it next to a hosta that has the white trim. So the green and the white, the green and the white. I didn't plant this, folks. 7 times. It got really big. So sometimes you just have to find, and I wasn't going to give up on it either. So that's the other thing. Lately I've given up on a couple plants and just cut them down and throw them away. Because I'm just getting old to wait. But this one, I feel we have a bond, right? It's good. The neat thing is it's right on the other side here is my white garden. So I read about Gertrude Jekyll, and she had a white garden, and I'm like, well, that's cool. I'm gonna have a white garden too. Go slowly. So it's taken me a long time to put this garden in. This is right up against the house. Here's my house. And we didn't want to mow all the way up to the house all the time. We have a tractor, so it was hard to mow in this area. So we built a rock wall and put in some dirt there and compost and whatever, and created a garden. And then there's a pathway, and then we created a garden. And then there's a pathway, and we created a garden. So I'm now out about 20, 25 feet in layers. So this garden has evolved. It wasn't a perfect, like, I have vision here, I'm going to do this is exactly what I want. It was like, no, let's try that. No, let's try this. I probably would have not put in the little rocks all the way here because they go right into the soil, and I tend to have to sift them and, constantly create a little path. We do have rocks going through here, so it allows me to shovel. And this is like, 2 feet high to get out into my backyard. But by going slowly, I have found a new white plant every year and found a spot for it. So, I'm finally pushing out and finding white varieties of plants that white irises, white phlox, I have the phlox David here, candy tuft, hostas that bloom white, the Aphrodite that smells really beautifully, white azaleas. This one is a little bit blush pink, and it kind of goes with the tree, so that's the edge of my garden. But take your time and just slowly expand out. How many people take pictures of their garden? Okay, I just use my phone. Okay, you got it, it's there, just take a picture. And the reason I say take pictures is you forget stuff. Okay, so here's my new trick, is when you plant something, leave the tag, number one, so you don't dig it out the next year. But take a picture, because now you know where that plant is, you have the tag with the name, okay, and it's usually a dated photo in your camera, your phone camera, so now you know when you put it in. It's like June 16th, 2022, here's all the information. So I know, Elise, you keep like a full journal and write everything down and all that stuff. And that's not me, but I have photos. You have photos too? Yeah. The main thing I started taking pictures of my daylilies is because you go to the nursery and you fall in love with that really pretty thing and you bring it home and you're like, oh, I already had that. I have like 37 different Hermiocalis daylilies. But I have a couple of days in my phone where I've gone around the whole property and taken every single daylily that's blooming that day. And then a couple days later I do it again because something will come in. So for a week in July, for the last couple of years, I have a pretty good inventory of my plants. And so now I know what I'm missing, what I can get. Right? So I take lots of pictures because you want to know what's blooming in March. So we have meteorological spring here in New England. March, April, May are 3 months. And for me, it can't come soon enough. I want flowers, I want plants, I want things blooming in my garden, and I can't remember what blooms when. And so now I'm out, I think we're about 2 weeks late or so. It seems people are noticing. Even though we haven't had the snow, and maybe because we haven't had the snow, I'm finding things are a little bit stressed out, a little windburn and cold. I have hellebore, yeah.
Mine was coming up all winter until about 3 weeks ago. And that heavy snow that we got.
Oh, wow.
4 or 5 of them, all pretty cool. The other thing is 2 weeks ago, I just particularly with always do the same spot. I'm not getting yellow flowers, I'm getting leaves, green leaves,
So a lot of us forsythia this time of year, and mine I wait till they bud out and look like kind of fat and ready to go, and mine aren't yet, so that is late. Hellebore, she's having problems with snow. Mine kind of came all up and the rabbit found them. So I lost my white hellebore, just cut down.
I thought they were poisonous flowers.
Well, somebody ate them. Wasn't me, but snapped off. And you know how you I have a picture of all those beautiful and whatever. So throw more leaves on top because it's been a tough year. Whatever. So anybody know what this is here? Witch hazel. So it's out, it's beautiful, it's blooming, and it's this big, folks. So you have this beautiful shrub. It kind of still holds the leaves on it. Doesn't look that great. Oh my gosh, look at those flowers. And this is right by my driveway. Okay, so it's right near my mailbox. So plant things where you're going to see it every day, really. So I see this, I can stop and enjoy the shrub and enjoy those blossoms because they are pictures don't do the colors well when you see these plants live. Lots of crocus, I have lots of different kind of crocus, and here's the Lenten rose or hellebore. It's coming out. It'll send its flowers up first, and then the leaves later. I kind of leave the leaves there. You know, you're supposed to cut them back and stuff. You'll see in a lot of my pictures, I leave garden dentures in the garden. I think I'm lazy in the fall, number one. We have a lot of leaves to rake and pick up, but I also think it's good for the environment of the plants. And then I don't lose where I planted things, because the dead stuff's there. I'm like, oh, that's right, that's there. I can't tell you how many times I've dug a hole and dug up a plant that I already planted, all the time. So that's what's blooming in March, and this is what's coming soon in April. I'm so excited. I have hundreds and hundreds of daffodils, and that's something I share with my mom. She orders thousands of daffodils. I go down and I plant them on her property, and then she gives me some to take home. And to me, that's springtime. For any of you who put together bouquets of multiple flowers in the spring, know that daffodils release some kind of I think it's like a latex or some kind of something into the water. So if you want to mix them, well, you can if you soak them a couple days in a vase just by themselves, and then mix them with tulips or something else, because otherwise they'll kill the other plants. And I only found that out through trial and error, lots of error. But I have lots of daffodils. Tulips do not come back very hardy. They don't come back very well. So they're kind of like an annual plant. I buy mine at Ocean State Job Lot. All the pretty ones, put them in, have them for a year, and then the next year they go. Every so often one will come back. And this is my yellow magnolia. And I'll show a picture of it later because it's a beautiful plant, but it's in the wrong spot. This version is butterflies, and I just hope we have a good flower. I get some years where it's just the timing of snow and whatever, it doesn't work so well. That's blooming in April, and then my garden comes alive in May. It's just amazing. I have a lot of native plants. I have 5 different kinds of trillium, and I've got all of those from Native Plant Trust. So if you're going to put in some of these choice plants, buy them from a reputable place. New England Wildflower Society grows all of their own trillium. They have Trillium Week in May. You gotta go. It's amazing. And you get good trillium there. It takes 7 years from seed to flower. So that's why they're expensive, folks. But they do multiply, and you can divide them. There's my trillium. These are Garden Club. I have no idea what they are, but they were pretty. I bought them, put them in. Sometimes you buy stuff at Garden Club sales that you just really don't know the color. It's not true. So that's part of the fun. The plants are usually nice plants. They're local, but you really may not know the true color. That's things. I have lots of dwarf iris. This is in my white garden. I have it in lavender also. Lots of azaleas, rhododendron, and you can see my Cirrus canadens, my eastern redbud that was there. It has now seeded itself, and I think I have 7 or 8 of those trees, mostly under 10, 15 feet or so, but it will seed itself throughout your yard. So this is what spring looks like. It's what's coming, folks. We're so close, we're so close. But if you take pictures, you'll remember. And if you take pictures, you'll kind of be able to plan, like, what would I want to put? I have to work on this spot right here in my yard. I have to pull this bed out, dig this up. And now looking at different pictures, I can kind of see like, oh, spring looks pretty good, but maybe I want something that's going to be blooming there in the summer. So your pictures can help you do planning and help with your projects. Up to mistakes. Oh my gosh. So let's start at the top. I have lots of beautiful red maple trees. They're all seedlings from my mom's house in New Jersey and her neighbors. They don't come up true. Each one comes up a little different. So you have all these different varieties of red maple. My nice threadleaf red maple, there was a huge dogwood here in the front, and I planted that from a little seedling. So it came up, it was gorgeous, whatever, but it was hiding that. And so when I finally stepped back and looked, I said, the dogwood has to go, because I have other ones. And that would show that plant. So sometimes this was planted in the wrong place, but I'm not going to dig up a 20-foot tree. And so now how do I work around it to show it off? And hopefully it'll do better now that it doesn't have a tree that was like on top of it too. So recognize you made a mistake. Walter cut it down. I had no, I couldn't do it myself. And then I covered the stump with leaves so I couldn't look at it. But I know it's there. This beautiful butterfly, yellow magnolia, I put into a garden bed that was kind of already dug up a little bit because I bought it at the wrong time. I was doing something. I didn't think about it. I just threw it in there. I forgot about it, and it grew. And now it's in the wrong place. I have a cotinus smoke tree behind it that overpowers it. So now do I cut the smoke tree down and let that go? I run the tractor right by here all the time. I have this little narrow spot, and I nick it every time I go by. It's in the wrong place, but it's beautiful. So it's staying. I just have to kind of figure it out. But it's definitely not. It's getting very leggy because it's just not getting the right light. Purple smokers, copious. Anybody have one? Okay, mine was like this big when I put it in. It's so cute, right down the thing. Purple, the leaves, foliage all year round. I take a truckload of growth out of that every year, and it's still 10 feet too big. So as part of the Master Gardener group, I was at Elm Bank, and someone had just hacked theirs all the way back down to the ground. It like had big, I'm like, oh my gosh, did you kill it? He goes, no, I'll come back. So I'm too scared to do it, but it has to get done. So if you see a big dead thing in front of my house, you'll know I did it. And maybe I'll kill it, and then we'll try something else. I love it, and the dog loves being underneath it and everything, but it's too big. There are years that it's up, I can prune it from the second floor. It's a wow shrub, so do your research. Right plant, right place. You know, don't make the same mistakes I did. I have a Fottigilla. It's in the wrong place, and it only puts out like one branch that blooms. I took a picture of it because now I have that really beautiful bottle brush kind of flower and everything. I have to move it, but it's now a big plant. But I have a really nice picture of the blossom because it's the wrong plant, the wrong place. And then don't you love this combination of coral bells, the Hercura? It looked really nice, the nursery, and you put it in, and then it kind of sometimes changes its color, acclimates to your soil, and it turned this awful chartreusey that clashed with everything else, and I'm like, that's coming out too. But I let it sit for a year, because sometimes you get busy too. But that's why looking at your plants, and like, this is not, and you might love it, but I don't. So that's the other thing, you know, change it.
So did the fruit fly change color because it looked like it had this different soil?
I don't know, but it wasn't that chartreusey. It had like a little stripy thing in it, so I thought it would pick up this, and this one turned whiter. I'm not an expert on plants. All I know is this combination is not working for me, so I'm going to dig it up and try again. And so it's like when I come home and I've rearranged the photos in the pictures in my house because I just need to look at something different. I do that with my plants all the time. So, well, let's change it up. Let's put something else up front here. So make mistakes, learn from them, and move on, because you will. Consider things other than plants. Okay? And you know, the secret to having a beautiful garden sometimes is structure. And some of that structure maybe you want to put down first. When we first moved to Westborough, I had 2 young boys. I'm on West Main Street, and I had 100 feet of busy road. So we put up a fence. After it got hit 2 or 3 times by cars coming into my property and taking out all of my white roses, they learned to grow over the fence. Sometimes you just have to let things go. We created a fence pen, and it actually works out well for the dogs. Now the dog has a fence same place. But look at the structure with the trees in the winter. Okay, so plant a fence. You know, sometimes structure will help define your garden, give shape to your garden, give kind of contrast in your garden. The old fence that was in the front became the fence for my vegetable garden that I had to fence in for the rabbits. There was no way fighting them. I talked to John at your farm. He's like, oh, I plant plenty, and they just eat the end of the row. Well, I only have a row this big. And when they eat all the lettuce, they eat all the lettuce. It's hard. So we now fenced in. Have, you know, different things in your garden. So you're trying to balance things. I have 2 acres of property, so I can have some follies in there. How many people went to the Tower Hill display where the guy had all of those beautiful wind sculptures, the moving things? It was fabulous. So they were almost 20 feet, 30 feet tall, and moved in the wind. And we went, and I came home and he said, I gotta have it. I want it. I looked him up. They started at about $35,000. And I have a good marriage, but not that good. So we went online, and everything I read when I did some research is don't buy the cheap ones, buy a good one. And so Stanwood, I have the link to it, makes these copper and brass spinner whirly things. It has been out almost 4 or 5 years now. Winter, summer, rain, snow. We take it in whenever there's like 70-mile winds, you know, predicted. It just lifts up and comes in. But it spins all the time. So I have like a wind gauge. I know how windy it is. It's pretty. It's colorful. It's fun. It was only $350, you know? But it's lasted. If you buy an $80 one and it dies, you know, it doesn't work. Buy something nice. This has just been my joy and my solace. Repetition within your garden. We do it with plants. We do it with color. You can do it with hardscape also. So when we first came in, we had a very narrow concrete pathway to my house. You couldn't like walk with somebody down the walk to the house. So we dug that up, and Joe Ventriglia, I was one of his first clients in Westborough, and I recommended him to you and some of you else, and he put in this beautiful walkway right here with all the pavers and made the edge, and he and I fought over whether we were going to have an edge on it or not, you know, and I went with his recommendation. That's how they go with the professional's recommendation. They know what they're talking about, and we don't. So when we went to create something in the backyard, I used the same pavers. I used the same material in a different spot. This was a great solution. Anybody has a berm feeder in their yard, and what's the dirt underneath it, it's all gone, right? Yeah. The sunflower oils kill all the grass. So you have this beautiful bird, you know, sanctuary, and an ugly mat underneath it. So this is the way you go to Pinterest, right? And you see this, and that's like 1 day's worth of work. We dug it out. We bought the stone locally, stone dust. We laid it in. I cleaned it up and added new stone dust every year. And I don't have the mess underneath my bird feeder. And I have now repetition in the front yard and the backyard. And you can see my stones probably need washing here. But that's another day, another challenge. But using the same material over and over. Use natural materials. In New England, we grow rocks. Okay? How many of you dig a hole? You find a rock, right? Okay. Use them. Use them. Okay? We had the area where my shagbark hickory were, they had just dumped a whole lot of rocks. So as I created that bed there, I dug up rocks. And then we moved them over here, and Walter made me a wall. Then this, a couple years ago, I said, can you extend it a little bit? Which he said, we bought some rock this time. He extended it this way, and then I said, well, it doesn't kind of go around the tree well, and can you make it go like this? So instead of adding 10 feet, he redid 50 feet and rebuilt the whole wall here. Like I said, I have a good marriage. This was the walkway that kind of went around the front of my house, and we never used it, but I wanted to have a walkway. So we dug all that up, you know, changed it and laid them out to the front. So almost all of the stones in my property came from the property. And then we're using them to create pathways and steps up to here. There's a big, big stone here at the top. When we first, it's got me like this. When we first set it in, like we finally got it there, the pry bars, the digging, the whole bit. We put it in, stepped back, and I said, I really want it over here. And I made him move it. Yeah. But it was the right thing to do, because now it's in the right place. So, rocks are heavy, just be careful. Use lots of plants, and lots of different variety of plants. So if you're successful at a plant, growing phlox, buy more. You're doing well with it, okay? There's so many different varieties. This is in my white garden, the David. And these are varieties I bought at Garden Club. I have another one that's like pink and white. They're beautiful. If you can grow something well, go get another one. Okay, you're doing well with it, your soil works it, you know, just keep that going. But then also, sorry, here we go. Go back, there we go. Then also buy funky things. So this is Calicarpa, right, the beautyberry with the purple berries. Very unusual, you don't see that anywhere, and it really stands out in the garden. And I got mine from White Flower Farm. So finding it, and finding a good thing, and finding the right place for it, but it just really stands out. The trillium here, I used to have that in like more of a woodland setting, and I never saw it, so I brought it closer to the house. And so I have success growing trillium, so I now have several different kinds of trillium. I've never bought a lady slipper because I had kids, a dog, and a soccer ball. And I think 20 years ago they started at about $30 a piece. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Native plants, if you can get natives and plant them, they were acclimated to this type of climate. They do well. They require less care. I have no water. I have no system in my yard. I will only water a plant when I plant it. And then maybe it starts looking bad. But long term, I don't water my garden. I plant perennials. I do plant bulbs now. I do tulips just for fun, maybe 5 or 6 a year, but they don't come back true. So look for other bulbs, and daffodils will naturalize and multiply, and the deer won't eat them. This is is anybody? I brought this picture here because I've got this plant. It's the columbine, aqualegia, but it's one of the varieties, not the Canadens, which is orangey red and yellow. Does anybody have this? Because I got it at Garden Club. You can tell me what variety it is? Oh, good, later. I want the variety. But it's amazing, just really great plant. So the whole trick is you buy a $5 plant and put it in a $50 hole. So when you dig that hole, you're going to really work the soil around there. That's where you put your compost. I plant and dig on a rainy day. I'm always out there. Now think about it. If you put a new plant in the soil and water it, and the area hasn't been watered in a while, all of that water is going to go to the dry spots, and the water that you went for that plant is not going to be there. Plant on a rainy day, everything's wet. The plant that you're putting in is wet, and you're wet. It's a thing, okay? But you don't have to worry about it. It's not not as stressed. You don't have to add water. And you know that it's not going to seep out into other areas. So plant on rainy days. The other trick and the other secret is there's a new garden and you want it to be flowering all year long. How many times have people said, how do I get that garden that always looks like something's planted? Buy every 2 weeks. Okay? So go to the nursery and you go, I want 3 of those, this is my thing. whatever. And now you know what size it is, and the color, and the whole bit. Next 2 weeks later, I need something in front of it, because these have stopped planting already. Now I need something behind it. Okay, so every 2 weeks you go, and you now will create a long garden. You'll be broke, but you'll create this garden that's constantly blooming. So that's just look around the neighborhood and see what's blooming, and then or an area of your yard that just needs a little oomph. You might be able to move something in there, or that's where you go and you buy something to make, stretch the season, stretch the colors. But the real trick, folks, focus on the foliage. Okay, we have to change the way we think of things. Think of all of us who embraced our gray hair during COVID. It was tough. It was like, okay, it looks different, doesn't it, folks? And you change your perspective. And I think we all want these beautiful little flower gardens like England. Well, this is not the climate of a cottage garden in England. We have a New England kind of woodsy area, and we can grow hosta really well. And they look great, and they come in different shapes and colors and sizes. So look at all the different types of foliage, mixing different foliages. So this is a hosta next to the geranium, next to fern here. I have a shrub. I just put things on top of one another to create lots of different textures. This is where my brain goes. The Eularia? Is it the Eularia? Yeah, this is, it has the most ugly flower you've ever seen. And you might like it, but it's this awful yellow. I hate it. It comes up and cut it. Just can't stand it. But the leaves are to die for. They come up. They have a purple underneath, red stem. You put them in a long vase. You don't need flowers. You don't need flowers. The foliage is so gorgeous. Okay, so look for the foliage in your yard. I'm really into heart-shaped leaves. So I have Hydrangea petiolaris, the Japanese variety that has heart-shaped leaves. I have the Cereus canadense, the eastern redbud tree, heart-shaped leaf. I have a Pusa, Katsura, is it? A tree with a heart-shaped leaf. I have a couple hosta with heart-shaped leaf. Brunera has a heart-shaped leaf. I'm up to like 5 or 6. I'm going for 10. So if you know anything else that has a heart-shaped leaf, let me know, because I'm a collector. The what? Violets. Oh, yeah, I have violets. I have the famous Charlotte Bramley yellow violets. Who has her violets? From her mother, who Polly was a garden club member years ago. Charlotte's mom. Yeah, so I have those violets. I mean, that's the legacy of the wonderful thing about garden clubs, is we have each other's flowers. Come on, here we go. Go back one. Plant for pollinators. Okay, this is our crisis here. We need the bats and the bees and the birds because they are pollinating our plants. They're pollinating vegetables down at, I always think of like, I'm planting for Nurse Farm. So because you're right down the road. My plants are there. All different kinds of things. My oak leaf hydrangea, oh my gosh, there's days there that it's just covered with insects, covered. It's like we are psyched. And you're planting for the pollinators. This is right by, this is West Main Street right here. I have the native milkweed growing in that bed, and I let it grow because a lot of things don't grow in the side of the road. You see what's on there? That's right on West Main Street. We found a home. They're living there. And then they go, and they're on my butterfly bush. Okay, plant for pollinators. I can't say this, the Xerces Society or something. I went to a lecture with Master Gardener, and they send you to the website. they have the best handouts on pollinators for the Northeast. They're amazing. So go to the website and download some of these pollinator resources. They are just amazing. Really, really great, good resource. Trees. I'm a tree planter. They say we can solve a lot of our climate things by putting trees back. And Chris stole my thunder because I had read that Westborough is giving away trees. And so that's the tree program. And now I'm thinking of what kind of tree can I plant on my property.
By the street.
Oh, there you are.
I street by the street.
By the street. Well, I have 180 feet of street. So I probably could fit in one more that Walter won't notice. Got to plant when they're at work, folks, really. So I have, this is that wonderful threadleaf maple that's hiding away in the back. This was a maple tree that a friend of my mom's gave me. Anybody know what that tree is? That was my colonial experiment.
Chestnut, butternut.
No, it's a yellowwood.
Yellow.
Yellowwood. And it's new growth. The stems are yellow. It's really cool. This one has been grown for 20 years. And I hit it with a mower once, you can tell. It's not doing great, but I'm keeping it going. I planted 2 sugar maples, really small, and put them in the yard. I think you're supposed to wait until the trunk is like 12-inch diameter before you tap them. I'm like 10 and a half. Really close, about 20 years. But look at the foliage, look at the leaves. Look at the thing. This is the back of my yard. Here's my Cirrus canadens. I have a crab apple. This is a red maple I put in. Just the color of the trees. Okay, trees can add color to your yard, and they don't require weeding. Really nice. Year-round interest. Okay, so here's spring, summer, fall, winter. There's always something to look at in my yard. I just make sure that like I have things that are coming up in interest and enticing me to weed and be out there and do the maintenance. Okay, this is that wonderful viburnum that comes out. I don't know the variety of it, but it's just gorgeous. I had this underneath another tree, and I had pruned it back so it would get more light. So find the things that are doing well in your garden and cut around them and make them grow and give them space. But plant. I never sit in this chair. It's in a lot of my pictures, but I never sit down. Okay, water. We all have a problem with water here in New England. It's going to get worse. We had a terrible drought last summer. It was really hard to keep our plants going. A lot of my shrubs don't look so good. I'm looking at some rhododendron that took a lot of hit. So if you have a rain barrel, capture as much water as you can to use it. I'm a big fan of natural leaf mulch and just leaving stuff on the ground to keep the soil not baking and retaining as much moisture as possible. The only place that I will put a sprinkler is my vegetable garden, because I really like to eat. So if you don't water your vegetable garden, it'll die. And I have dwarf peach trees that I got from the Conservation District. And they all bloom at a different time, and they all delicious peaches. This is my favorite peach tree. And this past summer, the squirrels learned to climb up the wire fence here and jump into the tree, and they were thirsty. They ate all my peaches. But luckily, they must have gotten fat and drunk over here, because then this one bloomed and I had some more peaches, because I can't. Leave the leaves.
Because they get very thick, heavy, and wet.
The leaves?
Leaves left. Do you take some off the top, or do you?
Depends on what's underneath. So sometimes I move things. Right now, things are looking heavy and wet. It's springtime. Don't take them all away. I mean, I look at some yards and they've taken the blower and they've just taken every leaf off the property. Well, so that you're denuding, like exposing the soil, exposing all those plants. You're taking away, things that will rot and die and create the humus. We do rake our leaves, because it just is too much. This will be like a 1.5 feet deep, if I left it. But I leave it for a while. Sometimes we run the lawnmower through it so you can break it up a little bit. But it looks beautiful too when you leave it in the yard.
When do you wait? What month?
So depends on my work schedule. We usually finish raking in November, like the holiday, Veterans Day or something. It's like when we try to get them. Oh, it has to do before the tree sale. All the trees have to be, the work has to be done before Civic Club tree sale in right after Thanksgiving. So we do have timing here.
So on the lawn, you would cut it or remove it, but in the beds, you leave it in the beds?
I leave it all in the beds.
Winter, summer,
It's a mess
fall?
right now. I mean, well, in a sense.
How's your bed?
I'll slowly clean them out. And so what I do, Chris, with those heavy wet leaves, then I'll get a barrel or a bag, and I'll go like this. Okay, so I'll take off like this much. And then I'll let that dry a little bit. And then I might take off a little bit. At Garden in the Woods, I watched them. They took all the leaves off, they put them through a chipper and a shredder, and they put it all right back down. And you then it was down like this deep, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, it settles out, and all the plants come through it. So it's amazing, using your leaves as natural mulch. Weed a lot, or plant ground cover. So, because weeds, once they get established, are going to start to ruin your beds. So I have a lot of different kind of ground covers. I've also used, I have a cactus from my in-laws right by my mailbox, and I've used rock, because the little prickly things from the cactus, if you start cleaning it out, it gets in your hands, that's awful. This is my favorite ground cover. You're all welcome to come to my house and get some. That's Chrysogonum virginiatum. It's a native ground cover. The flowers last about 3 weeks. It's amazing. It spreads, it goes into all different places. I have it next to my driveway, I have it underneath trees, but it's not invasive. Like lily of the valley is going to take over. Ivy, Pachysandra. Pachysandra you can pull up a little bit easier. But some of this stuff that you plant is really hard to get out. This is native, it's pretty, it spreads, and at my house you can come get it for free. Try to use ground covers. When I'm talking about weeding also, think about also pruning. I have a good pair of, now I have a couple pairs of Felco pruners. You have to keep your shrubs in check also, just the same way as your perennials and your beds. Now's a good time to go out and look for the damage and start to prune and think about where you need to do some work. Try to discourage animals and pests. It's really hard. I don't have fencing around my whole property. So we have deer, we have rabbits, we have a groundhog. I have a lot of chipmunks, some years more than others. We've had turkeys. I have coyote. We have a neighborhood fox. I love the fox. We have the most beautiful fox off West Main Street. And I have this dog. So the front yard's hers, and she digs holes. How many people here grow food? Okay, those of you who don't, try to grow some food. Put a pot on your deck and grow patio tomatoes, and put lettuce on the beds, and throw a couple of radish seeds in there and whatever. Oh my gosh, it tastes so good. It's good for you. It's fun. You can grow really cool things, and there's nothing like a tomato from the garden. I don't even bring in my raspberries. They get eaten outside. I remember one year my son had a couple friends over, they're playing in the yard and whatever, and he comes inside and goes, "Mrs. Leslie, your garden is so delicious." The kids in my neighborhood tell me when my blackberries are blooming. Can we pick? Can we pick? I mean, there's so much good to have food in your garden. So the only problem is you tend to have a lot of food all at the same time. So I do a lot of canning and preserving. I do have a lot of perennial kinds of vegetables, so the rhubarb, the strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, they come up. I've given up on my asparagus. I'm not good on asparagus. If you have a lot of critters, grow them underground. So I grow potatoes and garlic and onions. Okay? I can't tell how many squashes this year. I had one bite out of them. Oh my gosh. You can still eat that, folks, by the way. Just cut that out. I grow all my herbs indoors. I've had parsley all winter from a pot. Save your seeds. So I'm a big fan of going to local garden clubs and getting plants. You get really good plants, they're a really good price, and you can talk to the person who potted it up, and they can tell you a little bit about that plant. So I think that's really fun. I have started saving all of my seeds. I save old spice jars and put the seeds in, and if it's in a cold spot in my house and stuff. And we do have a seed sharing thing at the library too. So I'd encourage you to share seeds, and there's some, Elise, I still have your yellow tomato, those little tomatoes. The best, the best. So I get inspired by people who care about the earth, because I really care about our earth. And I started with Rachel Carson, Silent Spring. I was their early Earth Day adopter. I really feel that it has helped me as a person, just being connected to the land. Last Child in the Woods, if you haven't read it, oh my gosh, you know, that's where kids have nature deficit disorder and are way too tied into technology and not the world that they're in. This woman, Diana Kroger, to speak for the trees and tying in culture and trees and the language of trees. These are beautiful books. Dan Jaffe, have you ever seen him speak? He's an absolute, I'll send you this if you want. He's a hoot. He used to work at Native Plant Trust. I met him at the Rhode Island Flower Show years ago. He's got a talk called Kill Your Lawn, but he's just so enthusiastic. He's a young person in this business talking about plants. He's so infectious. Go see him speak. He's really great. And this is my new favorite. How many people have read Braiding Sweetgrass?
A little bit because of you.
Did you read it because of me?
Yeah, you posted it on, I think, Wise Women of Westborough.
I just.
Yeah. And
Oh my
I
God.
saw your post and then I went and bought it the same day.
I'm just rereading it. It's so beautiful. An indigenous woman who is making connections between plants and the land and her culture. Oh my, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Makes you really want to go out and plant. Take care of yourself, folks. Okay, this is my glove collection. I have probably about another 20 more with all the holes gone, you know. If you haven't gotten a pair of fox gloves, they're expensive, and you can see have holes in the end, but they're really nice if you don't want to wear gloves, or you put them underneath your gloves. The snow removal is, you know, we all are getting older, so be careful when you're removing snow. Stretch, yes, stretch before you garden. And also don't spend the whole day like this, you know. Change your posture, use kneelers. My mom has this really nice tool, which is like a little kneeler with these little things so you can push yourself up. I think I'm ready for it. She's 93, but you know, I'm ready for that. Drink lots of water. Be careful of ticks in the garden, okay? I've had Lyme disease. So you just have to take care of yourself, be safe, and use tools. So this is my tool, it's my wheelbarrow. I have a little pickup truck, drive it in the backyard, I fill it up, take it to dump all the stuff I don't want to compost. You know, all the invasive stuff and the prickly stuff goes in there. So use tools. Celebrate before and after. Look at that, oh wow, 25 years. Okay, so when we came here, the well was covered by a board, okay? And we had no awning over the door, and so you open the door and the rain came in, it was terrible. It took me probably, how many years? I wanted to just take the siding off the house, and he's like, no way. We have plastic siding on a colonial house. So the way you do that is you say, I want an awning over the doorway. And so when he stripped that away, I then ripped off all the siding on that part of the house. Then I ripped them out. So, I don't have siding on the house anymore. There's no plastic shutters. We have the well that Walter rebuilt, and we have a little pool here that had fish in till the heron ate all the fish. We changed that awful concrete path to a thing, and I started to plant. Celebrate.
Can I give you a suggestion for?
Sure.
Not having your fish eaten?
A net over it?
Well, you can try that, I guess, but, the heron always like comes and drinks at odd things. I have miraculously 2 orange carp that are at least 12 years old, and they slowly get bigger and bigger. But I also bought a blackfish originally, and they, interbreed, and now, the only ones I've seen so far this year are the one giant orange one, and all of these little black ones, because you can't see them.
Oh, so it
But
doesn't
I've looked
attract
in there
them.
so many times and not seen.
Someone
any
told me
fish,
to
zero fish.
Create,
They're there.
take like 2 bricks and put a slate over the top and give them a place to hide.
Yeah.
So that when the heron comes in. So we had, I had fish from Susana Ponte, and they multiplied. One time I had 11 beautiful fish, and they had names and everything, and the heron ate them all. So then they were all called Lucky. And then they're gone. So I have to think about doing fish again, but I think I will. Have fun in your garden. So my neighbor, I have 7 neighbors. The kids built a little fairy garden in the back of my garden. So that's like their space. My neighbors, I've seen their pictures of their kids. You take an annual picture of their kid. It's in my yard. My neighbor, they were going to the prom. They said, can we go under your arch by your vegetable garden? People are coming to my yard to take pictures. They're having fun in my garden. I'm working in the garden, they're having fun. But I kept this, because even though the kids have gotten a little bit older, it's just, they come by and they visit. So have fun. During COVID, we took the cedar, that lumber from the historical society tree that we cut down, and we built a star, and we had it up during COVID, and then we lit it for July 4th, red, white, and blue. Having fun. My dog pretty much has more fun in the garden than I do. But create places and have fun in your garden. Wait a minute. Last one. Because it's no secret, a garden with you, your soul. Okay? Celebrate your garden. And be gardeners. Be stewards of the land. But also have fun. So thank you very much.